Hello everyone, Shooty here. Uh, Coming back with another Shooty Talks video. Really close to the other one. That's because I decided I'm going to do a topic that has it's relatively easier to talk about rather than doing a whole recording gameplay and then talking about something. I'm just going to be talking about something that talking about something and then using random leftover gameplay footage as the background. The AC is on. Deal with it. um, Real quick, I suppose I will probably be doing another Too Darn Shooty video, or Rudy Tooty McShooty video. Um, it's I'm rolling back a lot of the music parts of those videos because uh, well, frankly, like I said, most of the new Rudy Tooty Shooty videos are going to be strictly comedy based, or mostly comedy based, with maybe a clip here and there if I'm playing a multiplayer game. Um, but I wouldn't expect to see a lot of music coming back into the videos. Also, partially because I do have a lot of songs I can use, but I don't feel like I have enough that work well in a montage video. And to top it off, the thing is I don't know which songs will get the video copyright claimed to the point where I can't upload it. Like, for instance, Rudy Tooty McShooty, Return of the Pizza Face King. Uh, there's another version of that video, and it's not viewable by other people on YouTube because it's been copyright claimed because I have like a 10-second clip of Back in Black in it, and despite the fact that it's not even like 10 seconds, it's probably a little longer, but I definitely cut into the song so I could sing like a really trashy parody of it, um, just as a joke. And even that was not enough to like protect the video. It got copyright claimed, and they just made it unviewable to the public. So I re-uploaded it again with a different different. I actually had to change. Some of the other songs in the video also got copyright claims, but they didn't like outright block the video entirely, and other songs in the video show up at different parts of the original video. So, um, and I also added a couple new clips to the beginning of the video. So the final version is, um, I wouldn't say significantly different, but it's a different viewing experience to the original um, video for sure. Um, so anyway, uh, I will probably do a Too Darn Shooty video. Rudy Tooty McShooty, I mean, real soon. Just gotta, see if I really do have enough clips to do something like that. Um, but now I'll actually get into the main subject matter of the video, which is, console wars. So to get it out of the way, console wars, I think, everybody's stupid. I think literally everybody is stupid. I think Nintendo fans are stupid. I think PlayStation fans are stupid. I think Xbox fans are stupid. I think, and most of all, probably PC players. I think everybody's a fucking moron when it comes to this topic. And it's because primarily I feel like people don't know how to actually advocate and explain the whole console versus PC or this console versus that console scenario. Most people take it like, particularly Nintendo and PC people. I think Nintendo and PC people are most guilty of this. I don't see a lot of hardcore Sony fans like memes on the internet suggest. And Xbox more so they're not they're guilty of it a little bit, but not nearly as much as Nintendo and PC, but the general sense is that they're not able to, like, in my opinion, they're not able to actually, like, argue why their platforms are better in a way that makes it, like, easy for people who aren't super into video games to understand. So instead, and people who aren't super into video games, I'm not talking about like I'm not talking about like, you know, your friend your friend Nick at work who owns a PlayStation 4 and they play Madden like maybe once every 2 months. I'm not talking about that kind of person. I'm talking about somebody who um they regularly play their video game console, but they're not like a super duper into video games type of person. They just kind of like to just play every now and then for fun. Um or they like to play for fun. And that's it. They're not like super invested in the what what can I say that won't make me sound pretentious? They're not super into the entertainment medium. They're more they're not invested in the history of it. They're not invested in the more uh, the more nuances of it, so to speak. So a lot of the times, and ironically, you would think that, in my opinion, about people who are super into these platforms, because the way they argue which platform is better, to me, is makes them sound like they don't understand the nuances. And I think the whole argument of which one's better is completely dumb, because the way I see it is there really isn't like the best platform out there. I think there is. I think each platform has its own strengths and weaknesses. Um, it's that's kind of like where I get frustrated when I hear people arguing. Again, like a PC versus console, or uh, this Nintendo Switch is better than this for this and that. Um, I think it's best instead you look at these platforms from a standpoint of strengths versus weaknesses, trade-offs, a trade-offs scenario. So, prime example of this is I'll go into the PC versus console debate part of it first. So PC players will talk up how wonderful the platform is. They'll tell you how, your games will run faster. You get more customability out of a PC, and customability means your PC can be customized. You can customize your games with like mods and stuff, and your whole experience is more customizable compared to a console. Um, and you also have I think it's safe to say you have a significantly larger game library to delve into, particularly the indie games. Uh, Not that indie games don't make it to console, but the indie games that make it to the console are typically the ones everyone knows. So PC gaming, you get a broader experience when it comes to gaming, and you get customability and uh, all around better performance out of your games. Um, the downside to PC that PC people don't seem to understand is that customability comes with the drawback that the platform is more uh, it's more difficult to get into. And what I mean by that is if you're not somebody who's well versed with using a computer, you will have a harder time getting into PC gaming, because there's a lot more that goes into stuff like downloading driver stuff, and just like game like the game like even the games themselves. Like some games, and this is not PC's fault, but like for instance, Fallout 3, you can't run Fallout 3 without mods. So unless if you're someone who understands how to get those mods, how to download the Nexus mod run stuff, any of that kind of stuff, unless if you're someone who understands that stuff and you understand how to navigate your computer, it's gonna be a big time sink for you. It's gonna be just something that really is gonna be frustrating to work with. Something I said in my last video is I barely use my PC, and now again, this is not necessarily PC's fault. It's my fault for not keeping my PC up to date, but it literally took me like 40 minutes just to get File Explorer open. And that's not PC's fault. That's just my fault. But because I'm not someone who gets super invested in my PC, it's not gonna work right. And I think that's kind of what boils down. Also, another part of it is the cost. PCs are super expensive. You used to run into people who would tell you that there's they sell like PCs for like, $500, $800, something that's around what used to be the cost of a video game console. And they used to say, you can get it cheap and pre-built. The problem is typically, not always, but typically those PCs that are like $500 or $800 were not very good PCs. I don't hear this argument from people much anymore, so I kind of assume. I haven't done my research on it, but I'm going to just assume that sort of thing's not much of an option these days, considering part scarcity. That being said, though, the PCs are super expensive to build. It costs, for my rig, it took me, I think, about $1,800 to put together. And I didn't even and another part of it too is the whole putting it together part. It's fun, but it's also a fucking major headache, because at least the 2 times I've put a PC together, I've had trouble. The first time I put a PC together, the company sent me a bad GPU unit, so I had to wait to get a replacement. The second time I put the PC together, the parts list I received, somebody screwed up and they didn't make sure that the CPU and the motherboard were compatible with each other. So I ended up with a motherboard that was not compatible with the rest of my computer. So I ended up having to get another one. So, and that ties into the are you competent with the computer thing in some ways. Like, do you understand how to shop for your PC parts? Because there is a nuance to that. If you don't understand that certain parts aren't compatible with each other, you're going to end up buying a bunch of parts and it won't work. So there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of things that go into PC building, and cost. I could spend $1,800 for a PC that's going to be a big headache to put together and a big headache to set up, or I could I'll talk about this like as if the console prices aren't inflated, but we'll say I buy a console for $800 or $600 back when it used to be $800 or $600. I buy that console at that price. It's already assembled for me, and most of the time, I know there's exceptions to the rule, but most of the time the console works. I know someone will bring up PlayStation, Xbox 360 when it used to get like the red ring of death. I know there's a lot of Nintendo Switches were malfunctioning when they came out. I know there's exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, when you buy a video game console, they, from a particularly the big three, they normally work. Again, exceptions to the rules does not mean that it does not mean nullify the point, in my opinion, anyway. So yeah, there's a lot more that goes into, and then even the interface on a video game console is much more user friendly. It's most of the time they're easy to pick up and quick to learn, as opposed to, I mean, again, if you're not someone who ever has used a PC before, um, yeah, you might know how to use the basic parts of a PC, but if you don't understand like how to, if you get a custom monitor for your PC, if you don't know how to open it up the control panel and set up that your resolution and all that, it won't work for you in the long run. So, um, basically, the overall point I'm getting at with all of this is that uh, I think that there's trade-offs to it. There's good things and bad things to these platforms. And it's better to instead look at these as what are you going to get out of them. So, before I get more into that point, I think I'll do a Paul Harrell and go to the birth of the fun with the console side of things, and it's that. So that way it doesn't feel like I'm just totally shitting on PC. Um, Consoles benefits. Some of them we already stated. User friendly. Relatively used to be relatively cheap compared to PCs. I suppose they still are. PC parts went up too, so it's not like consoles just went up and PC parts didn't. Um, so relatively cheap compared to PCs. Um, the game library. Now, you don't have a lot of indies, per se, but the indies you do have are typically the really good indies. And to me, I think that's kind of like a good thing in some ways, because it does help the, the game store a little bit. It helps make sure the game store is a slightly more curated experience. Slightly more than PC, but not much more. Um, Also, you get your first party games. You have like your console exclusives, and what you get, like on PlayStation, you get your God of War, your Uncharted, uh, your Ratchet and Clank. You used to get Clash as a Clash Bandicoot as a solo experience on consoles, but I know that's changed. Um, and then of course, Microsoft, you get you get Halo, you get Gears of War. Um, Nintendo, you get Mario games, you get Zelda games. Uh, you get these, you do get these exclusive experiences, which I always thought, in some ways, it's a fun. It kind of makes the consoles more fun, because a good console exclusive is designed around the console. It's designed to like show off what the console can do, in terms of like mechanics and whatnot, and not just the hardware itself. So to me, I think that's kind of been the bright side of console exclusives. And then, of course, let's see. We said so the selling points I said for console were, real quick. I said they were user friendly, cost effective, and the game experience. Now I'm going to go into the negatives, and some of these kind of nullifies some of the positives, but we saw that with the PC. But some of the positives, because of its user friendliness, the console is typically not something you can really tinker with too much, unless if you have a lot of experience with that stuff. Also, tinkering with a lot of video game consoles will nullify the warranty, making it so you can't get it fixed if you do break it. So that's definitely a downside to owning a console. Um, the cost of it. The I guess there's no real downside to being cheaper. That's kind of dumb, but oh, I know the games part. The games themselves. So, as I said, you typically get a slightly more curated experience on the console store, but it's not that much better curated. You do get a lot of more shovelware on consoles, because typically more people buy consoles. So companies who are looking to sell shovelware are gonna target the console store more than they are gonna target the PC store. Um, and then on top of that, exclusives. Sometimes I feel like some exclusives don't need to be exclusives. An example I'd bring up is like Horizon Zero Dawn. Uh, Horizon Zero Dawn. There's nothing about that game that says it has to play on a PlayStation, and that's a game you could put on an Xbox. It's not. There's nothing about the game where it's like the Xbox is incapable of doing it. At least in terms of like functionality. A better example would be Wii Sports. Wii Sports is a great example of what I was talking about earlier. So Wii Sports is a game you could only really play on a Wii because of the motion controls. It's designed specifically to show off the motion controls. Um, the Uncharted, the first, even especially the first Uncharted game, it's built a lot around the controls, or the DualShock 3 in particular. Um, and we saw that with Uncharted 4. Until Dawn on PlayStation 4 was a great example of a game that was designed around the PlayStation 4. So would be examples of games where it's like those are exclusive, but they're not games that you really can play on other consoles. But a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, there's no like control scheme or control gimmick that really marries it to the PlayStation. It's a game that could be played on you could probably see Horizon on an Xbox or a Nintendo Switch. Same for Halo, and I hate to say that to Halo fans, but Halo, there's nothing about the game where it marries it to the console. It's a game. It's a first person shooter. Um, that's pretty standard in terms of control scheme. So it's a game that you could see on other consoles. Um, so that being said, a drawback of the exclusivity is that you do miss out on some games because they're unnecessarily put as console exclusives. Um, and then and then this argument can go deeper into like this console versus that console, but in truth, I feel like I kind of made my point that the overall theme here is that when we're talking about one platform versus another, I think what you need to ask yourself, or the person you're talking to, is what are they looking to get out of their games? So, someone who might be playing a lot of video games, maybe they're looking to get into streaming, maybe they're looking to get into modding, and uh, maybe they want to look into like a very broad and open market of early access games, or indie titles. They're gonna want to play on a PC. I don't even think the power of a PC is really the selling point, because frankly, I think my opinion is a lot of the problems we see in the gaming industry have sprouted up from this need and desire to push every game title to being something about the greatest, bestest graphics and the greatest, bestest power you can get out of the console. Or at least, maybe not the power part, but what the power is used for. The power is seldomly used for actually improving the gameplay sometimes. Sometimes it's just about, can we make the game look pretty? And I think that's kind of like a drawback to a lot of modern video game console development. So, in game development in general. So I think the selling point for a PC isn't the power necessarily. Power's nice. Don't get me wrong. If you have a PC that can run well over 60 FPS, that's not a bad thing. It's just it I don't feel that it's pertinent to the actual gameplay itself. Um, the more important part is you have what how are you playing, and I feel like you're going to get a more broad experience when it comes to the PC gaming market. Mostly in terms of, I don't know, you can even go back and play a lot of legacy games. So there's that going for PC too. And then of course it makes it easier for you to stream with. Uh, it makes it easier to mod. Those are big strengths going for PC, and if that's what you want to get out of it, that's what you would go for. The PlayStation 4 is, or PlayStation 5, any game console. What are you looking for to get out of that? Well, I would say that if you're somebody who is just playing the games for fun, if you're looking to play with a lot of friends, if you don't have a bunch of money to spend on gaming stuff, and probably most importantly, if you're just not super invested in computers and stuff, I think that the console is the best choice. There's like tons of like really good multiplayer games that mostly they're on all the platforms, but most people, they can afford an Xbox or a PlayStation. Most people can't afford a we'll say like now it's probably costing well over $2,000 for a gaming PC. Uh, the so it's a good cheap option. Um, Hell, even another strength that maybe a more minor strength, but I feel it's a strength, is the split screen capability of a console. Some of my most fondest memories playing video games is uh, hooking up a Nintendo 64 or a PlayStation 2 to the TV and playing like the split screen multiplayer in Donkey Kong 64, or any like of the split screen titles you can find on PS2, or my one of my all time favorites was Army of Two on PlayStation 3. I loved playing those games with my brothers. It's split couch co-op. I feel is a very underrated corner of gaming, and I feel like you don't get enough of that anymore. But that is always kind of a strength to the consoles, if one considers it to be a strength. Anyways, you don't have to have internet or really good internet to play couch co-op. You literally can just play it, and it's typically very easy to set up. So, all in all, the I hope this didn't come across as like a shit on this and that fest. It probably did at first with the PC part, but the point I want to make is the overall point I hope I made was that um the ask yourself or the person who you're talking with, what are you trying to get out of it? Because not everybody's trying to get the same thing out of their gaming experience. Not everybody wants cares about frames per second. I'm not unless if it's below 30. I'm not picky about it. Below 30, the game starts being unplayable. But the human eye can only see up to 60 frames per second. So as long as my game's not below 30, I'm fine. I don't get super butthurt about it. I enjoy my games, no matter the frame rate, and I even enjoy playing like really really old games sometimes. It's as long as the game's fun. So I think that's kind of something everybody needs to uh, consider, is that not everybody's looking to get the same thing out of it. Um, I'm not getting, I'm not looking to get the same experience as somebody who's looking to make big booby lady mods for Skyrim. So, I guess that's kind of it. I think that's all I really had to say about the whole subject. I hope, but yeah, I just kind of hope, like, more people kind of try to look at things that way, and less about arguing which is better and all that. Um, because it's funny, but I remember when I was in middle school, high school, people used to debate about Xbox versus PlayStation, and then they grew away from that a little bit, and then it came back. It came back in recent years, particularly. I feel like it's been a lot of the PC versus console thing, and I guess that's kind of why I wanted to delve more into that and less about delving into a console versus a console, because I feel like we see more PC players and the PC elitists, uh, just like, and it's, I don't know. I feel like everybody's kind of a fool in the subject, not because they're necessarily wrong about talking about it, but because how they're talking about it, the way they talk about it, I feel like it's not constructive. So anyway, I guess that's it. Um, yeah, another Rudy 2D McShooty probably coming out soon. Anyway, just take care.